many times people are so upset that they got a divorce that they want to do it right the second or subsequent time. So they try really hard to just blend everybody together. And it's kind of, you don't see all of the different components. And especially kids, particularly adolescents, don't like to be homogenized. That's when they're really fighting for their independence. They want you to see them. So if you do acknowledge them as individuals, then they're more likely to or want to become part of a family. It's like, okay, I'll be a member of this club because you like me. You like who I am. So, and I don't have to be this particular certain way. Everybody wants to be accepted. Everybody wants to be seen for who they are. And that's the premise.
Welcome to Real Talk with the Parenting Blueprint Coaches, where we discuss all aspects of parenting using the foundation of understanding personality dynamics to raise independent, responsible, and resilient children. My name is Karen Wagner, founder of Teaching Our Youth and the Parenting Blueprint. Let's dig right in with today's topic and have some real talk with the Parenting Blueprint Coaches. So we all know that disagreements happen. But in bonus families with multiple households, big emotions, conflict can feel even more overwhelming. Today, we're going to be diving into how can we solve problems without pain and model the kind of healthy communication that we want our kids to grow up with. I am so excited today to have on with me Dr. Jann, who specializes in child custody, co-parenting, divorce, and step-family mediation. She's the author of multiple books on divorce, remarriage, and co-parenting. She's also the founder of Bonus Families, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to peaceful coexistence between divorced or separated parents and their combined families. And today we're going to talk about concepts from her new book, The Bonus Family Handbook, the definitive guide to co-parenting and creating stronger families. Dr. Jann, I am so excited to dig into this conversation with you today. I mentioned to you that I am remarried and I called my children my bonus children, but I didn't necessarily say there was a bonus family behind that, because that's where things got a little sticky. And I know I'm not alone in that. There are so many families that go through divorce and then they do remarry, and it just brings in more complicated, if I want to say, personalities and tendencies. So if you could share with us, what exactly is a bonus family, and why did you choose to use that term instead of a step family?
Well, for multiple reasons. Bonus, I was married, and the reason I'm saying I was married is because I worked with the court system for 12 years, and as I worked through the system, less and less people get married. So now I left in 2019. I left the court system. I retired from Superior Court in California and I did a little thing for a little personal poll of all my clients. And it was 68% were not married. 32% were married. So I lay that as a premise because when I first started this, I would talk about rules and things that we have to do to promote positive communication. And people would write me all the time and say, well, can we use these rules? I've never been married, so I'm not a stepmom. I'm not divorced. We've been living together. We have children together. So will these rules still apply to us? And so that was one reason why bonus really worked, because people really are attached to labels. And if you've never been married, they felt like they didn't have any direction or any camaraderie. There's nobody to talk to because everybody is a step parent or a step family. And in my case, I was a step family, and it just didn't work for my family. We loved each other. The connotation of step was negative. I had little kids. They were 3. My bonus kids were 3 and 7 when I first met them. And my daughter was 6. And in the midst of all of the fairy tales and the wicked stepmother, it really confused them, quite frankly. And particularly my bonus daughter, because I got very close to her. And we'd go places and do things, and people would say, well, who's this? And I'd say, it's my stepdaughter. And, her face would go. So that was one reason. And the other reason was she went home and told her mother that people automatically thought she didn't like me because she referred to me as her stepmother. So one day her mother and I were, at this point, we had worked through all of the junk that we had dealt with. And we were watching her play basketball. Melanie, she was about 13 by that point. So if I met her when she was 7, this is how long it took. And we just started throwing out names, the whitening, brightening formula of mom, and it can't, we just thought, okay, bonus. How about a bonus mom? And the other thing that was cool about that is, first of all, it's a reward for a job well done. So it's only positive. Like if you're in sales, you get a bonus if you reach quota. So the implication is I'm doing a good job if somebody calls me a bonus. But not only that, it goes all the way down. If you have a blended mom, you can't have a blended mom. You can have a blended family, but you can't have a blended dad. So bonus, you can have a bonus dad, a bonus daughter, a bonus family, a bonus mom. So it translates all the way through. And it's something that's way more positive than all that step stuff. And that's why.
I love it, and I totally agree that bonus is to me, it's like a present, like you said.
Thank you. That's exactly the precedent. I wanted it to be an acknowledgement of care and affection and a present. I'm giving you this gift.
Yes, I love it.
That's it. Perfect.
So let's go a little bit deeper. What makes the conflict resolution more complex? Because we've all been there. You and I have both been there, and I'm sure
we had a big conversation
this episode. So, if you were to sum it up, what is it that becomes so complex when we are co-parenting in a blended family situation?
Oh gosh, well, self-interest and all the personalities.
Yes.
I mean, as far as if you're trying to blend a family per se, you've got. If you don't accept your bonus kid or even your new partner's individuality, background, traumas, successes, and see them as theirs personally, then you're trying to homogenize them into this a lot of. I'm backtracking here, but many times people are so upset that they got a divorce that they want to do it right the second or subsequent time. So they try really hard to just blend everybody together, and it's kind of, you don't see all of the different components. And especially kids, particularly adolescents, don't like to be homogenized. That's when they're really fighting for their independence. They want you to see them. So if you do acknowledge them as individuals, then they're more likely to or want to become part of a family. It's like, okay, I'll be a member of this club because you like me. You like who I am, and I don't have to be this particular certain way. And everybody wants to be accepted. Everybody wants to be seen for who they are, and that's the premise.
Yeah, I love that. Boy, you're taking me back like a long time when we first started and we all came together. Now, Mark's children were older, so they weren't necessarily all with us at the same time. We didn't have all 7. And they were still with their mom, but there was a period of time where they did come to live with us. So either it was by choice they came to live with us, or they graduated and then they decided that they wanted to start over and be closer to their father, which was again a choice. And so there were some things that constituted a shift when those things happened in our family.
Really glad you brought that up, because I get a lot of people who think the status quo, when you get married or move in with somebody, it's going to stay like that forever. And it doesn't. As you just mentioned, you get kids who are graduated. You get somebody who loses their job. Mm-hmm. You get in different people, because I work with literally thousands of people. But oftentimes what happens is the teenagers don't like the school that they're going to, and the school is better near mom's house or dad's house. So they move it. And then the other parent goes, this is not what I signed up for. The bonus parent. I wasn't expecting to have to live with I thought they were just going to come over on every other weekend. And you can't get in a relationship like that. If you're going to support somebody, you support all of them. And that means their children.
Yes. Yep, it's a package deal, I said, it's a package deal. And we didn't always know what that was going to look like when we were
That's my point. You
right?
don't know what it's going
We
to look
did not
like.
know. And then when it did, then there were definitely some shifts in the family dynamic when someone new came into the home. And although we wanted to have the same availability, the same freedoms, some of them just didn't adapt to that as well as others. And we had some rebellion, going on. My kids were used to me, but someone coming into my home that was coming from a different parenting style, this didn't necessarily like the fact that I had expectations, routines, and house rules.
I was going to say, and rules. That's what rule and that's really difficult, especially if you've got somebody on the other side who, like their biological mother, who feels like you're taking my children,
Yeah.
and then she undermines what you're doing, or you undermine what she's doing, and you really everybody's got to be on the same. That's where it takes a village comes from.
Yes.
It's not about you anymore. Who cares?
No, it was a lot bigger than I think we even knew. And one of the things
Absolutely.
I was counseled on, and I don't know if you want to reiterate on this, when we did get married and all 7 of our children were in our wedding, was that the
Good for you.
biological parent needs to take the lead. And so that's something that Mark and I both had to understand, that he needed to take the lead in disciplining his biological children. I supported that. And the same thing, I would take the lead so that there wasn't.
You can't make it any clearer. I have something I call the 10 rules of good ex etiquette. and the 4th rule is bio parents make the rules, bonus parents support them. So but if the rules go against the moral code or the moral compass of the bonus parent, then you're going to have a problem. So you really have to have a conversation, and all that happens before you move in together. If you don't, you've got to have a clear idea and a plan. And I've got something in the book called the before exercise. And you sit down with each other and say, how am I going to cultivate a relationship with your kids? What does that look like to you? I'll tell you what it looks like to me, and have a real life conversation. And love will not conquer all. You already know what I'm talking about. It's cool if you love each other, but that's not
There are going to be triggers that you didn't even know could be triggered when you're
absolutely,
and it really is. And I guess I'm grateful and blessed that Mark and I had similar family values and expectations. But we did have different ways that we implemented.
Did you have a conversation before you moved in together?
About how we would raise the kids? No.
That's my point.
No,
we don't. We think, oh, okay, I love him. And his kids seem okay. So love will conquer all, and we're just going to do this. And really, we have to have a conversation. And I have an exercise where you get a pen and a paper and you write stuff down. How am I? How do you want me to get along with your parents? Do they really like your ex-wife? How are we going to blend this together? So, and really learn to not make it either or. It's also, we can all do this together. You don't have to choose one or the other.
I love that you've done that, because I don't even think I would have known those questions to discuss. I think
remember we were talking about
values and expectations, but it was then how do we implement what that looks like in our family dynamic when we have our relationship and we have the exes, right? And inevitably the children were coming in, my bonus children were coming in from a different parenting style from where they came from, and it was different. I'd like to think that I'm lovingly fair, but I still had boundaries, expectations, and consequences. That's just how I parented. I don't think
that's how you were raised,
right?
And remember, we were talking about that. We parent the way we were parented,
and then there was others where they didn't feel the need to have to obey, or they were sneaky, or you know what I mean. There were just some things that I was like, whoa, that doesn't happen here.
But you know why?
What
happens? Yeah, I understand that whole sneaky thing, though. That happens when the bio parents don't talk.
Oh, right. Yeah, because they can't.
That's all it is. It's
Right.
when the bio parents don't compare notes, the kids can raise themselves.
Yes.
You might think you're the greatest bonus parent in the whole world, but they're telling you one thing and they're telling their mom another thing.
You got it.
So
They got back to me later. I was the Wicked Witch of the Midwest, man. Now that they're all grown, they come back and it was like, you really weren't that bad. But it was the smack talk that was talked about me that led them to believe that that's how I was. And when really in the end, it was like, you really did love me. Now that they're parents themselves, mind you, you really were doing this in love.
Oh, I can't tell you. Sure, my daughter, I can't tell you how many times she's told me, Mom, I understand now.
Yeah, that's the karma piece, right? So every family, especially bonus families, need a system for conflict. So can you walk us through that 4-step process of resolving conflict, just so we have kind of a template of what?
Okay, first of all, two answers to that question, or two. It's the same answer, but it's 2 tiers. I always suggest you have a way to, you decide in that before exercise, what is our forum for conflict resolution in our family? What are we going to do when we don't get along?
Right.
How are we going to solve problems together? And that's a very important conversation that nobody ever has. So I put together a really, really easy model. The bonus family model is, well, first of all, for a family discussion, there's all sorts of rules for that too. I'm big on, okay, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. But a family discussion, anybody can call it. In my family, anybody could call a family discussion, from the kids to the adults, if they want to talk about something. It's not a bitch fest. It's a solution finding place. We sit down together and find solutions. But the 4 steps that you were talking about is, number 1, identify the problem. Or identify the issue. I hesitate to call it a problem. The second thing is, come to the table with a solution. If you don't, you're just dropping a problem in somebody's lap and they will resent you. First of all, you're not giving them any heads up. You're not, they'll look foolish if they don't have an idea. And you've been worried about this for a long time, if it's a problem for you. So and this comes from when I used to be in sales years ago, before I went to school for mental health, before I became a mental. My vice president, I had a problem in my territory, and I had to go to the vice president about it because I needed a problem solved, and he needed to authorize it. I couldn't just do it. And so when I walked into his office, I told him the problem, and he says, "Do you know the solution?" And I said, "Well, yeah, it's this. He goes, "Next time you identify the problem, tell me the solution, because then we have some place to negotiate from. You're not just dropping it in my lap and asking for authorization." And what negotiation looks like in a practical thing is, just for example, would you please pick up Billy from school for me? I have to work late. Will you pick him up at 5:00? The other person would say, I can't pick him up at 5, but I can pick him up at 4. Will that work? That's the part of the negotiation. Instead of just saying no,
right?
Just, because a lot of us are, when we're trying to problem solve, are just inclined to say no. You have to think about it. Okay, well, what is the negotiation? I can pick him up at 4:30. Can't pick him up at 5. Can we figure out some place that he can go for that half hour and I'll be there? Or can I pick him up early? Now we've got, yeah, that'll work. You've just negotiated. And then the compromise is 4:30, not 4. You know what I mean? Look for within the suggestions, there's got to be a solution in there somewhere. And if you want
to work better. Yes. Rather than go and it ends. And I don't know, are the families you work with just texting each other, or do people still make a phone call? Because I think
oh my goodness,
so misunderstood.
I wanted to in our pre-talk, I wanted to say to you, please bring up texting.
Yeah.
Because I am not an advocate.
We can misread tone in a text, and some of these things should not be text. I know it's people make a phone.
All of it should not. I mean, the only thing text is a notification.
That's it.
It's not a mode of communication.
Yep.
And I'm going to be 15 minutes late for a practice.
Right.
That's cool for a text, yep. But Bobby needs braces and 2 teeth pulled, and let's talk about that's a conversation. And what the courts do is they get frustrated with the blah, 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 blah. So they say everything's in writing, and you have to use this co-parenting app.
Okay.
And the co-parenting app, all it is glorified texting. And now you've got text this long, and they just have text wars. And have a conversation. And all of the tools that I have in the Bonus Family Handbook are verbal, listening, talking, communication tools.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. Now, I find even to this day that texting, although you're right, it's a need to know basis, what you may need to know.
It's a path of least resistance because we want to avoid our partner.
We do, and I can get that, because there are times where I may not have wanted to talk to the ex, but I just need to put on my big girl pants and do what I need to do. Right?
It's not about you, is it?
Right. No,
you're not talking because you like each other.
There always tends to be a level of misunderstanding in how that person will read into what you wrote. I see it over and over and over again.
Because they want to. They want to fight.
True.
They're used to fighting.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
They're used to fighting. And then when they can't fight, they don't really know how to communicate with each other.
So you got to identify the issue, come to the table with a solution. Did I miss the other one?
Negotiate.
Negotiate. Okay.
Okay, so then you negotiate about the solution that you're suggesting.
Right.
You might just say, sounds like a good idea.
Right.
Then you don't have to negotiate. But the negotiating, that piece is really important, because that's what prevents you from just saying no.
Right.
And then the last is compromise. In your negotiation, look for the compromise. Right. So the four steps are: identify the issue, come to the table with the solution, negotiate, and be open to negotiation, and then be open to compromise.
Love that. I love that. They're just
real easy. Really easy.
It is probably easier said than done, depending upon the emotions that you're going through. So one of the other things you talk about was fighting fair.
Mm-hmm.
Fighting fair. What are some specific things that parents can do or even avoid to keep those conversations, let's say, respectful and productive?
Stay on topic, one topic at a time. Because what happens is, when you don't fight fair, you can tell me something and I would go, oh yeah, well, what about you? And then you'll blah, blah, blah. And now it's spinning because you're talking about another subject. So you didn't solve this problem over here, and now you're arguing about this problem. And so that deflecting is one of the biggest problems that I see. Is you're just going to have to own it and talk to each other like grownups, instead of, I told you we all break up like we're in high school.
We do. It just gets ugly. And for some odd reason, I guess it feels easier to break up with someone when you really don't like them, and just instead of just saying, we just don't get along anymore. And can we just let this go?
We're both good people.
Yeah.
We both love our children. Yeah. We just both, people change for all sorts of different reasons. I don't think that breaking up is necessarily an indicator of a failure. It's an indicator of a change, but I don't think it's necessarily an indicator of a failure. Every child that I've ever talked to, that's the parents have broken up, and they've waited till the child is 18. They've all said, please God, please break up.
Right.
They don't want to. Who wants to live in? I think it was Dr. Phil actually said that kids would rather live in something about a broken home rather than I can't remember. I have to look it up, but it was basically kids don't want to live in a house where parents are arguing all the time.
No, and in my situation, it wasn't arguing; it was just silence.
Oh, and
that was crushed. That was soul crushing for me. That was soul.
But it's soul crushing for them too. Can you imagine living in a home when your parents don't get along and you know it?
Yeah.
And
my kids saw it. I mean, I think my kids sensed it. There were times where I didn't want to dump it on them, but I may be in another room reading a book, after dinner when they might be doing their homework and stuff. And I would just be a little weepy. I knew it wasn't a healthy situation, but I was a stay-at-home mom. I had been home with my kids the whole time. And
you didn't know what else to do.
I didn't know. How do we resolve this? And my kids knew. I remember one evening, my son just came over and sat next to me and just put his arm around me. I didn't want him to see me upset. That's why I was in another room, but it's not that they don't know. They can feel it too. We're feeling like they can feel that. And one of the things that led me to make that big step is I did not want my boys to think that this was what healthy marriage was, because it was not.
Oh, good for you. And that's exactly why I made the decision as well.
Yes. I did not want my boys.
I didn't want it. I didn't want my children to see it.
and think that
Right.
this was normal because that does become their normal.
Well, it is normal. It's not that it's not normal. It's just that it's not healthy.
Healthy.
You know, I
True.
don't really.
Yeah.
Lots of people break up, and I don't think that it's abnormal. It's just it's if you aren't getting along and you can't for whatever reason, then take care of it. I always tell people either stay together and take care of it or break up. But that limbo thing is terrible for you, your psyche, and your children.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was some tricky stuff for them to just see the silence and think that that's what marriage was, because so it wasn't loud and yelling and that type of dysfunction. We just were in our corners and not engaging.
Yeah, but see, that also teaches our children how to solve conflict, and what it does is it's avoidant.
Oh, it
It you
was.
know,
Yes.
and we have to teach them how. And you don't do that in your next relationship because you go out of your way to make the corrections.
We did,
We,
and we did
yeah.
it a lot quicker because both Mark and I had learned from past experiences what we wouldn't do and what we needed.
Mhm. But
So,
let's go ahead. I was just going to
so
say
we're
it's
let's
good for you that you
let's
made
talk
the
about the
correction.
impact on the kids and the things that we're modeling. This kind of leads us right into the
Yeah, segue.
so how do these unresolved conflicts between parents affect the kids watching from the sidelines? I mean, like you said, they're in the house and they're seeing it. So either they're seeing, like in my case, just the silence, the radio silence of no one talking. They know it was sticky. They know we weren't together, and then there may have been the explosive, way that people resolve conflict. So how
We're
do
the models. We're the models for our children.
we are?
You know,
Yeah.
and we talked about. I don't know if we talked about it already in the segment, but we parent the way we were parented,
Yeah.
and so what we're doing is we're modeling that behavior and modeling that type of conflict resolution for them. So and the thing is, they just like you said, I didn't know any better. They won't know any better either. So we have to model what we want them to know, and that's why you either fix it or you start over. Sometimes you do that in the same relationship. You
Yeah,
know,
well, that's right. That's right. So, what are a few ways that we can begin to model this healthy conflict, even if we haven't done it in the past? So, in other words, our kids may have already experienced things that weren't healthy. And I always talk about what I do in working with families, that we need to go back and what I call repair and restore. So we need to go back and fix some things so we can move forward. So if the children have already seen unhealthy ways to resolve conflict, and parents are feeling like I've already blown it. You know what I mean? I don't know how to put this back together again because too much has been said or done. But I know in what you do, there is a better way.
well, I can tell you, I tell parents to model an apology.
Yes.
And I do this with people that are together because I work with people that that have recoupled, and also not only just co-parents but also their extended family or their bonus family. And if they perpetuate the same behaviors and fight with their new partner, you're just reinforcing the negativity. So what I always tell people to do is, because if you think about it, when people, they know we're not supposed to fight in front of our kids, so they'll go into their bedroom. They'll fight in front of them. They'll say, oh, we can't do this. We have to go solve our problem. They go in the bedroom or the bathroom or the garage, and they fight it out, and they come back in and everything's cool. And the kids are going, my parents are waxed. What is going on? So you haven't shown them how to solve the problem. And I'm not saying fight in front of your children, but when you've solved the problem, come out and say, you know what, honey, I shouldn't have said that to you. I should have said it like this. And I really appreciate, and then their response, even though you probably are still mad, would be, thank you for that apology. I really appreciate it. Now, I understand this sounds like a little Pollyanna, but that's what you've got to do,
Yeah.
is you model an apology and model an acceptance. So the kids now know, okay, after you argue and disagree, it's okay to say I'm sorry and not blame them. Just say, and take responsibility for it. Shouldn't have said that to you. Should have said it like this. So now you've told them what the right thing to do is. And then you demonstrate positive acceptance. Thank you for apologizing. I was feeling really bad. That makes me feel much better.
Yes. I love that. Being able to model and apologize in front of the children, so they are seeing that. I've blown it with my kids, and I come in and apologize that I got triggered and I overreacted, and I apologize. It was something inside.
That's exactly what you say to your partner in front of the kids. Whoa,
exactly.
That triggered me, and I have to apologize. I shouldn't have said it like that.
Reacted in that way.
And make sure that you tell them what you should have said.
Yep.
It's just
I had a really bad moment with my bonus girl, and I threw her out of the house, and it wasn't my place to do that. I am not proud of that moment, Dr. Jann. That was probably one of my lowest moments.
I understand.
And it didn't feel good. And we got together for a family meeting. You
good for you.
That is well. So we had a family meeting, and she said something because she was planning to run away from home and not tell anybody. But the brother knew, and the brother told us, and I called her out on it. And when she just had this flippant attitude, and I lost my shit.
Lost it, yeah.
I did. And then I had to apologize her. I wrote her a letter, that it just hurt me to see that she would hurt her dad, the man I love, who loves her more than anything. And it just, I don't know about you, but you hurt me, I'll deal with it. You hurt somebody I care about, I will kill you. No, I just reported that, didn't I? but I mean, it's like the mama bear coming out at that point, right?
Well, you're just protective of it. But the other thing is, she needed some allegiance too. That if she's hurting so much that she's threatening to move or leave, you got to take a look at that as well. That's the individuality and empathy. Put yourself in her shoes. If she's so upset. Yeah. And it's hard to do that when we're the grown-ups.
We're the grown-ups. And so I had to, if that's what she was choosing to do, because there was a boyfriend where she left and she wanted to get back to him at the age of 16.
Oh, well, tell me about it.
Okay, sure. So at that point, Mark once this all came out that she was planning on running away and not telling anybody, he said, if you want to go, then I will take you back. We'll pack up your things and I'll take you there and know that you're there safely. I prefer you stay here. We love having you here. You're welcome to stay here. But I'd rather take you there and know that you're home safely rather than you go and think that someone else.
Was the boyfriend living at that house?
No, they were in Georgia and we were in Michigan. So.
Oh, okay. So you had long. So I ran into boyfriend living at mom's house.
Oh.
And because boyfriend and of course. I have to my bonus daughter's credit, she continued to go back and forth, but mom let her boyfriend move in with them.
Wow.
And her dad and I were furious because the equilibrium, is slightly, sure. Where do you want to be? I don't want to be where the boyfriend is. So that's even worse than your puppy misses you.
Well, I mean, and it was the encouragement from the mom that you can't win him back if you're living with your dad in Michigan. So
see that
right. So they were the types of things that just totally inflamed me. Like,
well, it inflames everybody. And now that
doing well, she's making friends, she's getting acclimated, and then you go and throw this wrench that you can't get your boyfriend back. So anyway, that was a whole nother ugly story. But
you can see it's nothing.
Apologize.
It's nothing new though, and it's something that parents, bonus parents, and parents alike are going to have to take a look at and talk about. And also talk about with her biological mother. One of the reasons this whole thing happened is you guys weren't a team.
Yeah. No, and I was certainly out of that. And that was between, that was where Mark would get in, because we were not collectively all together on the same page.
And that's really important. And I know that it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
But it's a necessity if children have to go back and forth. Because the law says, the courts are saying they have to live in two houses. It's your responsibility to get over yourself. Sorry.
So can I ask you another question that I'm sure wasn't in my notes, but how do you navigate through different values?
Oh, gosh.
Okay,
that's
so I think that's where
I got
really
morals.
drilled down on why that was. That was not a reason to tell her to come home to get a boyfriend back. That was not. She didn't want her to come back to the house. The mom didn't. She went back home with the sister. I mean, it was just a whole you couldn't have orchestrated this any better on a Jerry Springer show. Okay. So, but I mean,
everybody lives on
one who experienced when someone has a different value that they're bringing in that does not align.
Got
with
to talk
the
about it.
values.
And you've got to talk about it from the kid's perspective, not what you think is right.
Correct.
But okay, let's stand back and say, what is this saying to the children?
Right.
Now, I'll tell you real quick. I've seen this many times where parents break up, and one of them starts dating. Maybe one of them drinks a little bit more than the other. They start dating, and their choices of who they're hanging around with and when they hang around with them is probably not the best for the children. So I had one, I'm going to tell you this one. I had one where the father was partying heavy, had his girlfriend over. The son came over on Saturday morning. Father forgot that son was coming over, and his girlfriend's bra's hanging from the chandelier. The kid walks in and is going, what's this? So these are the kinds of things that happen, and you have to reel it back in and talk. So, I mean, we had to have a whole co-parenting thing and ask Dad, what do you want to project here?
Right.
Okay. And what do you want to say to your son? And don't make mom the bad guy.
Right.
Let's take a look at really what you guys want to project. And remember, he comes over on Saturday mornings. So if you're going to go out, take care of it. And when you start making him take responsibility or her take responsibility and look at it from the child's standpoint, that's freaking embarrassing.
That is hard. And it was the values that
that's
Mark
what
and I
I'm
were on
saying.
the same page with our values and the way we wanted to raise them, what were important to us. But then they go to another home in which those lines are blurred, and it's kind of counterproductive. I'm sure you see that all the time. I'm sure
All the time.
you
have
can't
to
tell me how to
decide
live
whether
my life, right? You can't tell me how to live my life. I mean, how many times have you probably heard that one, right? You can't. So, but then
but you
what are
have
we
to
projecting to the children, right?
There you go. That's it.
It's
not. I'm not judging you. You live the way you want to live. Let's stand back and see what our 13-year-old boy is thinking about when he walks in. I don't care how you live. That's your deal. But when our son's there, it's your job to be a role model.
Yes.
If you only see him 2 days a week, you've got 5 days to hang from the chandelier.
Yeah. Oh, God.
That's pretty much what that's how I
can't imagine my son walking in and seeing that, the different personalities of my boys. They would probably have very different reactions, but it would not be positive. Put it that way. It would not be positive.
Confusing. More than anything, it's just confusing. This kid was 13 years old. What is that? It's what does it say about women? What does it say about men? There's a whole lot of dancing going on in there. And the parents had never talked about dating.
Right.
Parents, they have to talk about dating. How are we going to do this?
Right. Yeah.
Anyway,
you bring up so many good points here. So I just want to recap a couple of things.
Okay.
First of all, bonus families are beautiful.
But
it can be complicated, right?
Yeah.
And the other point is conflict is inevitable. Whether you're in a bonus family or not, conflict is inevitable, but it doesn't need to be damaging.
I know. I think it is an opportunity. I get really excited with it. In my life now, if somebody disagrees, I go, "Oh gosh, great! We can have a conversation."
Yeah,
this is awesome.
Right.
Because if you don't disagree, then the conversation is just everybody agrees. And if you can actually come to an agreement or a compromise when you disagree, oh my goodness, look at what you're laying the groundwork for as far as your children go. They can use that in work. They can use it with their friends. They can use it in school and in life.
Is that I share with parents when they need to go into an awkward or difficult conversation is, hey, you got a minute? You got a minute?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, we need to talk. We need to talk and the wall is up, right? Just say, hey, do you got a minute? And then try and find a way to.
Got a minute is a good one. Yeah.
Right.
Whenever you say we need to talk.
I know. Even the kids themselves, let alone the ex, right? We need to talk. You say that to the kids, we need to talk, and they're already like, what? So
got a minute's a great one.
You have devised in your book that sounds as though it's done up almost as a workbook, a simple system on ways that we can resolve these disagreements where everyone can be heard by discussing these things in advance, because the focus really needs to be our kids, and they're watching everything we do. Disagreements, conflict are going to be inevitable in every part of our life, but the way they're going to learn to resolve that is by watching us. The most powerful role models in their life is in the home.
The reason I'm smiling is because I tell this story a lot when I'm in interviews and stuff. The family discussion, it sounds like it's no big deal. But if you raise your children understanding that there's a forum for conflict resolution in our family, and this is what it is, they will do it. And I'll tell you real quick. When my bonus daughter was 9 and my daughter was 8, so we had been living together for a year and a half at that point. The parents were always the ones who would call the family discussion because and so what and we would do invitations and we would say what time it was and everybody had to go. And so one day my the kid's dad and I got an invitation, and it was underneath our office. We both worked in the house. We had 2 different offices, and we got an invitation under both doors from my bonus daughter and my daughter. And they said the meeting was now, the whole thing. So we all sit down, and I'm thinking, we want ice cream on, we want ice cream on family movie night or something. I mean, and my bonus daughter and my daughter stand up and they say, we think you're working too much and we don't see you enough. And I went, my heart dropped because I worked at home. Their dad is a general contractor. He worked at home too. He was out on the field, so we were always home, but evidently we were working too hard. And we sat down and figured out how we were going to, I established office hours, real office hours, posted them on my door so that they could see, okay, at 4:30, mom's going to stop, but I would never have had a forum for them to say your work if we didn't do that. And I'm so gratified. And the kids do it too. My kids do it. And we still have family discussions.
Dr. Jann, that is a beautiful thing, because if they did not feel safe, or if you had not laid out that framework, they'd have felt as though that they were not important enough for you to stop working and spend time with them. That was like
I'm so excited that it worked. I can't even tell you. That's why I tell this story all the time.
Absolutely.
As they had a forum for them to come to us, and we didn't poo-poo it. We just went, whoa, okay.
So I talk about the family meetings quite frequently in my coaching practice as well, except there's not invitations. I always tell families to kind of keep it light. Like it's Taco Tuesday. We know everybody's around because everybody's happy when they're eating tacos. Or Sunday, we have all the ingredients out for making Sundays, and just say, I'm so glad everybody's together. Dad and I had a couple of things we wanted to run past you. Is that okay with you? Because everybody's in the room. To just try to keep it light. But the invitation thing was really good. You know what I mean? So
I used to have rules, and that's the invitation was that whoever called the meeting, they could not, somebody couldn't say, no, I have a date or something. You can't do that. You say, okay, the date is now going to start after the family discussion. And we all had to be there. And you had to have, whoever called the meeting was the one who introduced the problem and also offered a solution. So you go through that little 4-step thing that I was talking about. Yeah. But I understand what you're saying. I just thought that if it was more organized, my kids needed more organization.
No, I think that's great. But see, those family meetings were planned by us, not by the kids. So what you showed them was a framework that they have that same ability to take leadership and say, we need to talk.
Yeah, and they did. It wasn't the only time that it happened, but that one was just like shocking to me.
Oh, I know. I bet that was like, I'm right.
It was. I thought I was just kind of being very flip when I sat down. It's like, oh, okay, you guys, what's up? Yeah. And they were very serious.
They wanted their time. Mm-hmm. That says something about your relationship with your girls. I love it. Yeah.
I have a bonus son too. He was. See, if my daughter was 8, then he was 6.
Jeez.
He just sits there. But now he's 40.
Yeah. We're dating ourselves, Dr. Jann.
I know.
Oh, gosh. I want to thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. I mean, before we wrap up, do you have some final words of encouragement to give to families who are just dealing with the conflict right now and are not quite sure where to start to try and create that peace?
Oh gosh, that be honest. Be as transparent as you can. Use the children as the criteria for your decision making, not what you want. It may not be the same thing. It may be the same thing, but put them in the center and put yourself in their shoes and figure out what would work best. I'm not saying let your kids have the power. I'm not saying that. Actually, what I'm saying is just the opposite. Children need their parents and bonus parents to take control of it and help them to feel secure and safe.
Yes.
So you can't let them flounder. You have to be able to show them the right way to go. So, and I'm not saying bulldoze. I'm saying use love and compassion and empathy and acceptance and all those positive things as guide.
I love it. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. Well, I am so happy to have had you on this episode. I hope this episode gave you a new way to look at conflict and some better tools on how to resolve that. So if you'd enjoyed this episode today, like, subscribe, and share. And I'm also going to be giving in the description the link to Dr. Jann's website where you can get her new book. And I know I wrote it down here, the Bonus Family Handbook, a definitive guide to co-parenting and creating stronger families. I think that to have a book and a guide to give people some direction, Dr. Jann, kudos to you. Great work.
Well, thank you. It's an encyclopedia.
And for any family, even prior to getting together, I mean, I guess we can go back to the repair and restore if you're already in it. But for those who are just entering into this, to have these tools in advance, create some magic there. So thank you so much for all that you do in supporting families. I hope you enjoyed.
My pleasure.
Look forward to seeing everybody on the next episode. Thanks for joining us.